Hey guys, we're at the Excel Group in Southern California, and they stock IZIP, Raleigh, and Highbike. Those are their brands, and we're looking at the IZIP E3 Moda. Now the reason I mention the other brands is because this is very, very similar to the Raleigh Redux. I reviewed that in 2017. Pretty exciting bike. Speed pedelec, it used the Brose TF fast motor, just like this one. Really great weight distribution. We've got a 36 volt, 13.8 amp hour, just about 500 watt hour lithium ion battery. It's integrated into that down tube, looks really nice. It's got the magnetic charging port energy bus. Be careful not to set this cap down, be easy to lose, and then you're left with kind of the naked pins like that. I do like that it's situated out of the way from the crank arms though. I'm gonna get more into the drivetrain in just a second, but this is a pretty well-priced bike. It's like $29.99. You get the 2-year comprehensive warranty, dealer support, 3 frame sizes in the high step over here. They call it step over, and then they call this step through, but to me, that's not really step through. It's kind of a mid-step just because of how high that top tube is. This is a small size frame, but I measured it, and the reach and the length of the bike, the width, it's very similar to the medium over here. The only difference being standover height. So this one, you're gonna have to swing your leg up and over this rack, which could be increasingly difficult if you have a trunk bag. Otherwise, you're gonna have to lift and step right over the top tube there. One of the other things I noticed that's different between the 2 frame styles is that the high step has bottle cage bosses. And I love those. It's great to have water within reach while you're riding, or maybe a folding lock, a mini pump without having to put any bags and everything. They've got these custom fenders. They're like 66 millimeters wide. And then they've got that custom alloy rack too. So, this is standard gauge tubing. You could hang some panniers. There's not really great blockage here, so the pannier could rub against these Schwalbe Super Moto-X tires. They're extra wide. They're 27.5 by 2.4. And that's one of the other big differences between this and last year's Redux is that it had 2-inch tires. These are 2.4, so they're a little bit fatter. It definitely improves the comfort, especially because this is like a rigid frame. There's no suspension in the rear. It's an alloy fork. There's no suspension up here either. It has a straight head tube. This is 1.125" versus 1.125" to 1.5". So finding a nice replacement shock if you wanted to have a suspension fork could be a little difficult. Your choices might be limited to cheaper shocks, and it's kind of unique. It has a through axle, 15 millimeters, standard 100 millimeter hub spacing. It's not boost. Same thing in the rear, 135. This has a 12 millimeter through axle, both of them quick release, which is really nice. That's one of the benefits of using a mid-drive system. It's going to be easier to service both of these wheels and tires. The thing is, you probably aren't going to need to service them very frequently. So Schwalbe makes really good tires, and these have the performance green guard, so it's like a puncture protection setup. Also, the PSI rating on these is pretty good. Let's see, it's 30 to 55, so you can go pretty low on them, and that's going to improve the comfort like I was talking about. If you want to go even further, you can replace this 31.6 millimeter seat post with a suspension post, something from Thudbuster or Body Float. There's lots of options, even some really cheap stuff from like Zoom, just 25, 30 bucks on Amazon. It just gives you a little bit extra comfort. Nice stem, 90 millimeters, a little bit longer, and a bunch of spacers here. So 20 millimeter and then 5 millimeters, and we've got it in the up position. I believe that's 6-degree angle. Kind of flat, I don't know, it's kind of a low-rise handlebar, but it does have these locking ergonomic rubber grips. So there are several like comfort upgrades on this bike. I definitely appreciate that. And then the utility of it, this is about 52.4 pounds, the bike with the battery and everything on it. The battery pack's like 6.5 pounds, and then the motor is like 7.5 pounds. Okay, so getting an idea for taking that battery off if you're going to hang this on a car rack or even setting it on one of those tray style racks. That's kind of how I go with the heavier bikes, but it's 4 pounds heavier than the Redux last year. So I think a lot of that's just the rack, the alloy fenders. Alloy is nice because it's a little bit sturdier. This is not going to vibrate and make noise like plastic fenders might. However, if you get it bumped a little bit, it can kind of get bent out of position. It's not going to rust like steel, which is really nice. So I don't know, it's a trade-off. Back here at the drivetrain, we've got Shimano Dior, just standard Dior. There's no one-way clutch, no Shadow Plus. It's just standard 11 to 32 tooth sprocket. I've been seeing a lot wider sprockets. Like I look at the Tamblin, and that's the one with drop bars and stuff from Raleigh. Really exciting bike. it has 11 to 42, and so the larger sprocket in the rear is going to make it easier to climb. It also had a 48-tooth chain ring up front and this nice alloy guide. Okay, so that's going to keep the chain from bouncing off track. Also, if you come into contact with a curb or a rock or something, it's going to protect it. Standard 170mm forged FSA alloy cranks, and then these unique alloy pedals. They're plastic, but they've got this grip tape setup going on, so I don't know, they should give you decent traction. If it's wet, snow is gonna, pile up in there, not mud. I don't know, I haven't used these a whole lot, so I can't say, but at least you're gonna stay clean because of the fenders, relatively clean. I like the designs, kind of this fractal pattern or whatever, and it does come in two colors. There's this bluish gray with lime green and black for the step through, and then bluish gray with black and orange. But you'll notice that the graphics here, they're just stickers on the fenders, and they start to get kind of, gummed up a little bit. It's not perfect, but I appreciate the style. IZIP's really going for like this fun, sporty style this year, and this is a unique looking chain guard on this one. See, it's got those different cutouts, and it's a little bit fancier. I don't think that's actually what's going to come on the production bikes. I think they'll look like this, just a standard black, which I like. It's clean, gets the job done for sure. And then the brakes, that's worth mentioning too. But I guess before we do, the trigger shifters are pretty nice. We've got two-way action on the high gear and then triple on the low gear. So it's great. It's a high performance shifter. And then we've got these 3-finger Tektro Orion hydraulic brake levers. They do have adjustable reach in there, so you can bring them in a little bit if you want to. The difference being, if they were mechanical and they had wires, the wires stretch over time and you have to kind of adjust a little barrel roller right here, whereas these, it's just a little set screw. Once you've got the brakes bled and everything, you can dial it in and bring it in if you have smaller hands, or maybe you've got gloves or something like that. So anyway, great brakes. I was really impressed with these because they have some nicer rotors. 180mm up front, that's pretty large, with a quad piston caliper. Okay, so that's more surface area. It's being applied to those stopping and maybe help it to cool a little bit. You get a mechanical advantage with a larger rotor versus back here we have one, well, I guess it's a dual caliper. It's a little bit larger piston, and then 160mm disc brake rotor. Love the kickstand position. It's out of the way. It's adjustable length, so you can pedal the bike backwards like this or walk it, and it's not going to get there's going to be no collision is what I'm trying to say here. And then the Brose TF motor. This offers up to 90 newton meters of torque because it's the fast motor. It's rated at 350 watts. We are in the United States right now, so this is a class 3 speed pedelec bike. Great for commuting. This motor is super quiet, super smooth. It has like a Gates carbon belt drive system inside, so it just, the power delivery combined with the mechanical engineering inside, just it's one of my favorite motors actually. It's really quiet, it's compact, it's kind of small, it doesn't stand out a whole lot, and then with that down tube battery, I mean the whole thing just looks great. This is the locking cylinder to get it off. I do have the key right here, see in my pocket. It's made by TKM, so it's not ABIS or AXA, and you're not going to be able to get a lock that's key to like some of the fancier bikes. Just unlock it, pull it up a little bit. Okay. There we go, trying to be extra careful. It does have that ridge, so it's relatively easy to lift out. 36 volt, 13.8 amp hours, 496 watt hours. It's got some recycling information. There's the power button, the magnetic charging port at the top. Yeah, it's a nice battery. It uses lithium-ion cells like most e-bikes these days, which tend to be long-lasting, relatively lightweight. You want to keep this out of extreme cold and extreme heat to help it last a long time. Extreme cold can really sap the power. I also tend to keep mine above 20% because it changes the chemistry when you go below 20%, stresses it out, so I charge it after most rides. And then you'll notice I took the key out. I think that's because there's kind of like a spring-loaded latch in there. When I push this back in, there we go. Did you hear it click? We're good. So the battery is locked in, and it feels fairly secure. On the Tamlin yesterday, there was a little bit of rattling when we were off-road. So maybe that's because it'd been used more. And then here's the battery charger. I love this thing. 1.9 pounds. It's fairly large, but you can unplug the wall side to make it a little bit more compact. and then it has the Rosenberger magnetic interface. So you can plug that into the bike. Remember, it was high up on the battery. If you trip over this or something, it won't knock the bike over. It'll just pop right out and you're good. And 4 amps is faster, so it shouldn't take too long to fill that battery. I just feel like it's a good setup all around. There are some trade-offs though, and I'll get to that in the display in a minute, but I like that you've also got lights wired in. So that's the AXA Blue Line 50. It has the windows on the side. It's aimable. Unfortunately, the wiring is a little bit sensitive. It actually came unplugged earlier while I was riding, and I haven't been too aggressive on this thing. And then there's no light on the back of this one, but that's just because, you know, it's a demo model. This is what the light should look like. AXA Blue Line, it's built right onto the rack, it's wired in, so both lights run off the main battery pack, which is really convenient. I guess I'm just a little bit, actually, let's see, yeah, see, the wiring on this one's also a little bit busted. So these, you know, I'm doing my best. I welcome feedback, trying not to get anything wrong, but I'm out here just, you know, sharing what I see. And it is nice to have lights built in, especially when you're going faster and maybe commuting to work, that sort of thing. So in order to activate the bike, this is where there are some compromises. You have to press the power button way down here on the battery first, unless you've ridden it within the last 2 hours. There's like a 2-hour timer, and then it goes into deep sleep mode. Before I do that though, I want to show you that this display is removable. There's a little tab on top like this. You can take it off, and that's handy if you're commuting, because then this won't get scratched up. No one will steal it, or, you know, sun won't beat down on it. In order to slide it down, you can't start at the top. You have to sort of start in the middle, and it fits in, and then it clicks down. But there's also a full-size USB Type A 5-volt, 500 milliamp charging port at the bottom. So if you have a phone or GPS, you can mount those to the handlebar, and you can run them off that battery, and that's really handy. So here we go. I set it down, clicked it in, awesome. I was in the shade here kind of purposefully so that we could see the display a little bit easier. Let me try this again. So I'm press the power button down here. There we go. The screen jumps to life pretty quickly, and then it goes to that bright mode. It's pretty cool. Anytime you press the buttons, it goes bright, and then it fades out after just a couple seconds. If you want to change between miles per hour and kilometers per hour, you would turn the display off like this and then hold power and menu. It doesn't always work perfectly. I've had mixed results, but there we go. I did it, kilometers per hour. So now I'm going to turn it off to go back to miles per hour. Wish me luck. Yay, it worked. Okay, fantastic. And then I'm going to do the plus arrow, or the, I guess, up or down, and it went bright again. So there are 3 levels of assist. We're in the highest: Sport, Tour, and Cruise. And if you go all the way down, there's this little arrow right here, and that means walk assist. So I can hold the down arrow, and then the motor will kick on and go a few miles per hour. This could be really handy if you're going through some deep sand or snow, or you just want to walk with your friend. Maybe you've got the rack loaded up with groceries. You're trying to like go up a steep ramp into your house or into a basement or something. It's nice that walk mode is enabled. We've got this light button, so you just press that, and that activates the lights. Yay, it's working. Sweet. It's a pretty bright light. I like that. And then I think if you hold the light button, there's this A, which means automatic, I think, because, you know, I was experimenting with this earlier. There we go. I got it to activate because I'm like covering the light sensor down here. So anyway, I'm going to turn the lights off. 10 ticks on that battery infographic. That's really good. 10% increments. A lot of times you just get 5, and it's just not as precise. And then over here we've got the menu button, or here. So I'm gonna use it on the button pad now. We're going from time to trip distance to, I think this is average speed, trip time, and then total miles, like odometer, and then total time, which is confusing to me because it's definitely been ridden for more than like 3 seconds. And then back to the clock. And I thought there was range in here, but I'm having trouble finding it. You know, I do think that's in there, but I'm sorry, I'm falling short on this a little bit. It's a really nice display. The button pad's easy to reach, seems well sealed against water. You got the USB port. It's a good setup, like all around. And again, with the motor measuring your rear wheel speed, it's like a sensor right here, and a little magnet that passes by, pedal cadence and pedal torque. I would say that Brose relies more on torque. So if you're just real gentle, even if you're on the highest level of assist, it doesn't overwhelm you. It's very responsive. It feels like it's empowering you versus taking over. Sometimes, by comparison, Bosch, if you're arrowing up all the way to turbo, which is the highest mode, even if you're not pushing super hard, it's quicker to kind of like ring and give you full power. So Brose is more natural, is how I would describe it. Again, 2-year warranty. IZIP has a bunch of dealers, but they're also selling direct online if there's no dealer nearby. So I hope this review has given you some deeper insights. I'm gonna hop on this bike and just cruise around a little bit and try to give you some ride shots. There we go, stow the kickstand. I am in sport mode. Here we go. I would say it's not as responsive as Bosch in terms of the starting and the stopping on the motor. It's also not quite as smart in terms of shift detection. So if I'm shifting gears, it's just gonna mash those gears, and it's kind of up to me to ease off. But again, the torque sensor is really good, so I do ease off and it doesn't seem to be a problem. Here's a good example. See how it's a little bit more like bang, and then you hear the motor shut off afterwards because I think it sort of shocks the system or something. But yeah, I don't think there's shift detection going on in there, and that's one of the trade-offs. Okay guys, the goal here is to let you see the drivetrain and listen to that motor starting and stopping. I'm going to be riding in sport mode just so you can hear it. And at the higher RPMs, you'll hear it more because the motor's spinning quickly. But I like that there's a 1-to-1 ratio. There's no reduction gearing like you have on the Bosch system. You could change this chainring if you wanted to. Also, if you're pedaling without assist or beyond 28 miles per hour, it's not going to drag in any way. But again, there's no shift detection, so I'm going to shift through the gears a little bit. This time I'm going to try to not to mash them. I'm going to ease off and keep it smooth. Nice, there's our 28 miles per hour. Also, I didn't have to shift into higher gears quite as frequently because the Brose system seems to match you up to 120 RPM, so it's got good cadence matching versus some of the entry-level motors like the Yamaha PW series. They only go up to 100 RPM, and the Bosch Active and Active Line Plus, they go to 100 and 105 RPM respectively. So it's just a slower cadence, and it means you have to shift gears if you want to go to faster speed. On a speed pedelec, that could be a bummer. I mean, you're transitioning through different streets or neighborhoods, hills. It's nice to just pedal faster if you want that. Yeah, you have gears, you have 10, that's good, but you don't have to use them quite as frequently this way. Loving the ergonomic grips and stuff. Just really comfortable ride with those bigger tires. They're not quite plus size, but you do feel it. Like when you turn, I almost have to push on the bar, like to steer away from the turn, a lot like a motorcycle. I got my motorcycle license like last year, the year before, and this feels a little bit more like just heavy. Like you can feel the weight of those tires and stuff. There you go. Pretty good braking. I mean, I'm squeezing pretty hard on that front rotor. Nice to have that 180 millimeters to give you the mechanical advantage. Well guys, I think that's it. That's the IZIP E3 Moda. For the full written review on this, I did measure both frames, including standover height and stuff. I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com, where I've also got some other IZIP, Raleigh, high bike stuff. Have fun out there, but of course on a speed pedelec like this, just ride safe.